for your time. Now, we've heard one of those young people talking to Patricia there. They're saying that they're hearing that the EFF will create jobs for them, but the how part still remains a bit of an uncertainty. What do you read from that?
Yeah, I think the problem is not just for the followers of the EFF. It probably also is a problem for the EFF itself, in that it struggles to articulate exactly how it will create these jobs. But again, it's not just an EFF problem. It's a universal South African problem where absolutely everybody who either goes out to the electorate with a promise of jobs or even the governing party itself, they don't seem to be able to actually explain what it is that will be done tomorrow, the day after, or the week after, and how this will translate to jobs and how we can monitor and evaluate this. So I think the very idea of jobs creation in South Africa remains elusive, mainly because very few people have actually taken the time to really unpack what type of an economic architecture do you need in order to create a particular number of jobs, and are you then creating the support mechanisms for that to be realized. And unfortunately, the party that we have right now in power doesn't seem to have figured out how to do that, and also the parties that are trying to unseat it don't seem to know much better.
So would you say that this statement is kind of far-fetched, as it doesn't seem to be realized anytime soon, based on the fact that there is no clear sort of guidelines as to how is it going to unfold?
The good thing about not being in power is that you can always sort of create a paradigm and say, if I was given access to state resources, this is how I would reconfigure and repurpose the state so that these particular things will be achieved. So the EFF could literally come out today and say, look, the current architecture of our country, the political and economic system, is not conducive to job creation. This is what we're going to do differently. This is what we're going to dismantle. And we feel that if we dismantle this, it will then unlock these particular opportunities, not just for young people, but for people at large to participate in the economy. So the EFF is in a position to do that. The ANC would struggle to say that, because then the answer would be, well, you are already in charge of the levers of the economy, so why don't you then change them in the way that you see fit so that you can get the type of jobs numbers that you want. So I think the EFF is in a unique position to simply say, we are not confined to the existing paradigm of what the ANC has created as state machinery and state architecture. We believe that in order for us to get to this type of number of jobs that we want, the quality of the jobs that we want, the security and the tenure and the duration of the jobs that we want, this is what we're going to do differently. But I suspect that when you listen to the manifesto later on, you might find that they're still lacking a bit in that one. But the importance of that is that if one political party could come out and say, actually, this is what we're going to do differently, and this is how we will be monitored, and this is how we're going to prove that the jobs can be created, it will start sounding like a different conversation to the electorate at large. But right now, they all seem to be saying the same thing, in that we will do it, we will do it. So we really entered into a realm of speculative politics where nobody gives us a definitive answer, a definitive roadmap, or a definitive plan of what exactly it is that they're going to do. A couple of weeks ago, we heard that the ANC said 275,000 jobs. That for me was probably the most disastrous part of the ANC's election manifesto, because 275,000 jobs is actually not from the ANC. It is something that the government said later on when they're talking about a job summit. So Cyril Ramaphosa hosted a job summit, and at that job summit, the number of 275,000 came through. Now, when the ANC launches its own election manifesto, that number has got nothing to do with the ANC as a political party. It was a government number. So the ANC should then say, look, as far as we see it, over the next 5 years, these are the number of jobs that are needed in order to dent the unemployment crisis. So therefore, these are the jobs that we're putting on the table. For them to make a promise of 275,000 rand will do absolutely nothing to fix the unemployment crisis. So one is obviously then thinking that the EFF would have noticed that and then said, well, if we're going to come up with a number, it definitely cannot be lower than 275. It needs to at least sound higher than that, because already to the people it sounds like, well, at least their plan, whatever it is, however elusive it might be, it at least generates more jobs than what the ANC has said. So obviously the good thing about doing a manifesto after the biggest political party has done it is that you can literally cherry pick parts of their election manifesto that you want to attack and say to the electorate, you heard what they said 2 weeks ago, we can do better. This is our number, this is our growth rate, this is our focus. So the EFF should actually play into that.
Well, now looking at the fact that as well, they chose this venue. Building up to this manifesto launch today, the EFF leader has been going on to saying that they are learning from the likes of Zimbabwe, where their rallies are held actually where the people are sort of based and live, as opposed to, for argument's sake, going to Orlando Stadium or FNB Stadium. But they wanted to come here. What do we read from that?
I think what you tend to see is that when the EFF looks at what the ANC does and tries to sort of do something different, one of the things I would have noticed is that the ANC has occasionally been accused of being detached from the masses, of being aloof, of going to all these fancy venues, having the VIP cars and having the VIP treatment. And of course, in a country where so many people are feeling excluded, not just from the economy, but from the political system at large, those things tend to be a bit offensive to people that feel that they've been left out. So then the EFF's approach is to say, we're going to be more inclusive, we're going to be more grassroots based, and we're going to go to where the people are. So for them, it's a matter of we bring the politics to you, we engage to you in your own territory. We do not impose upon you the cost or the burden of having to come to us. So for example, the ANC hosted its manifesto in Durban. So of course, people from other provinces had to migrate there. But of course, that is also in line with the fact that the ANC rotates across the country because they want to be present wherever they are. So that is essentially how the ANC has preferred to do this. But I think what the EFF then tries to put across as a message is to say that we go to where the people are. And of course, then aligning this with the township is obviously something that is very creative in their parts, because then a lot of people will say the townships is where the majority of the people that really feel disillusioned by the current status quo are to be found. So therefore, if you go to them and then you say we're here to solve your problems, it might get a few people to then say, actually, this is the party that we're going to listen to, rather than the one that says we're going to book a big stadium and then, you know, have VIP treatment and then have all these marquees, because it tends to exclude a lot of people, at least psychologically.
Now, the EFF is turning 5 years. 6 years this year.
6 years in July.
Now, Dalimbo, for the national chairperson, was speaking to him earlier on. He says that there's a lot of things that they have achieved, that they have acquired between 2013 and building up to here, saying that when they got the 6% of the vote in 2014. It means South Africans trusted them, and then they didn't disappoint in Parliament, going on to talk about the issue of land, taking pride in the fact that former President Jacob Zuma is now the former president. He's no longer part of government, saying that those are some of the things that they have achieved as the EFF. Do you think that would be convincing enough to the voter that, let's yet again give them another chance?
Look, I suspect when that one takes a post-mortem and says, what has this particular political party achieved in the most recent 5 years, particularly once they were in Parliament, there have obviously been some very significant victories. And I suspect perhaps the most significant victory is not really what they've done to the ANC, but really to the fact that they've created this space within the South African political system where people feel that there is an alternative voice. Now, whether some of us agree with that voice or not is not the issue here. The issue is that some people think that this is perhaps the voice that we either can migrate to if we want to confront the status quo, if we want to confront the ANC, or if we're disaffected with what the ANC is offering. Similarly, people who might feel that they never wanted to be part of the ANC architecture but didn't feel that they'd find a home in the other parties, being the UDM, COPE, or even the DA, would then say perhaps this is a voice that speaks to the issues that matter most to us. So I think for me, them opening up the political space was a significant achievement, but also in the practicalities of what they really did. Parliament, up until the EFF arrived, was this very dull state of affairs where decorum was a thing, and people didn't really feel it was a process of engagement where people could get them and actually robustly debate ideas, and we see changes being made. And I think the EFF, with their inability to just stick to the known decorum and for them to confront issues in the day, and for people to then see that, oh, so this is what can happen if I then sort of make my voice heard through my vote. So I think it helped a lot of people start re-engaging with the political process, and the way that they sort of then latched onto the mood of the day with the pay back the money thing, because obviously in the age of social media and hashtags, that was something that was going to resonate with the public at large. And you didn't have to be an EFF follower to then hear that message, because obviously the more traction it gained, everybody would start thinking, what is this message all about? Who started this message? So that created a visibility for them. So I think over the past 5 years, they've definitely achieved a lot of things, even if perhaps the 6% is something less than what they would have hoped for. I still think them getting up to 6% of the vote in 2014 when they were less than a year old is still a massive achievement, because we're speaking of over 1 million votes that they were able to get within that time frame. Now they've had 5 years of learning, they've had 5 years of building up a grassroots movement. They obviously expect to get a lot more than 6% in this particular electoral cycle, so we have to wait and see what happens in May.
Now, in 2016, during the local government elections, we've seen the EFF coming up, being the kingmakers in as far as the coalition governments are concerned at local level. One sort of things that might have sort of set a tone of what we might see transpire after May this year during the national elections with the EFF, of course, saying that they will take Gauteng. They are confident that they will govern in Gauteng, or at least they'll be part of government in this province. Again, that statement is quite a confident statement to send across.
Oh, well, remember, every single political party, if you speak to them today, they'll tell you that they're all going to win the general election convincingly. In an election campaign, everybody has to say that they're going to win, even if they know practically the reality is not that they're going to get an absolute majority. But does the EFF stand a chance of being the kingmakers in Gauteng in particular? Definitely yes, because I think if you saw what happened between 2014 and 2016, there was this realization within the ANC electorate that actually the ANC was just deaf to the concerns of its own electorate. So a lot of people in 2016 either then rejected the ANC out of this idea that they wanted to teach it a lesson, or some of them simply stayed away from the participation because they just felt that the ANC that they dedicated their life to was no longer the ANC that they wanted, that they were seeing on the ballot papers. And I think in that space the AFF then was able to capitalize on that, because a lot of people who tend to migrate away from the EFF, from the ANC, tend to find the EFF as the most natural next home. Only when they get there do they then say, well, perhaps this is not it. But it's very unlikely that a person who's a hardcore ANC supporter would instinctively find a home in the DA. So the detour will always be the EFF, and then when you get them, you start of then analyzing and saying, is this the type of home that I want to? And some of them are going to stay, some will return to the ANC, and some will migrate to other parties. But I think that what you're seeing here is that a lot of people then see the EFF as this alternative voice. And the other important thing that voters tend to look at is to say, look, if I vote for the EFF, they are not going to win the general election outright, but at least they provide this buffer of accountability, because now if they are taking votes from the ANC, it means that the ANC starts thinking, oh wait, we might one day lose a general election, so perhaps we should be more responsive to what the voters are saying. So a lot of people simply park their votes to the EFF only because they want to build this culture of fear in the ANC, where the ANC then starts thinking, we need to deliver, otherwise there's a risk that people will never return their votes to us. So I think that's the type of critical role that the EFF plays in the body politic. Now obviously if we do end up with coalition governments, probably in Gauteng, that's where people think that there's a possibility that the DA might run a good enough campaign for them to sort of put the ANC below the 50% majority, and only then does the conversation around coalition government kicks in. So when the conversation around coalition government kicks in, then obviously it moves back to the EFF and say, which horse are they willing to back now? Now the EFF has been very clever in that they haven't fixated themselves to any particular political party or any particular political ideology. They say that we will vote on the issues of the day with the party that agrees with us on the issue of the day. So in the city of Johannesburg, for example, they're very clear that they're very happy with Herman Mashaba, even though he's a DA person. In PE, they were not particularly happy with Athol Trollip, but not because of governance issues, ironically. It was simply because they had said to their electorate way back in 2014 that our first cardinal pillar, which is the first thing that you see if you step into the EFF's offices, is this idea of land expropriation without compensation. The DA, on the other hand, was very clear that they didn't believe that was the way to go. So the EFF then used that as a trump card to say, look, if you're going to go out there and say that we are in a partnership, you cannot undermine what is the one thing that we put out there and say, this is our founding principle, this is our core cardinal pillar, which is the concept of land expropriation without compensation. So they then literally then decided to use Athol Trollip as the bargaining chip to say to their own followers that in spite of the fact that we might be getting into our strategic partnerships with the DA, whenever this party undermines the one thing that we put to you that no one else put out there, we are willing to step away from those types of arrangements. So that's why the whole the PE conversation around Athol Trollip transpired. The great tragedy of that, of course, is that a lot of people simply say, we want to vote for a particular party because service delivery is what we're after. So then when you look at the PE situation, if you then say that Athol Trollip was delivering on the service delivery mandate and then you remove him on the question of ideology, some supporters might then start thinking, but surely you knew that in a local government election, the one thing that matters most to us is the question of service delivery. And if this man was delivering that, couldn't you find another way to then simply punish the DA, as it were, for them not agreeing with you in Parliament? And I suspect that that's probably a conversation that the EFF should be having in the background, and we're not sure if they are having that conversation.
Kaya Sithole is our resident analyst today as we are witnessing this second elections manifesto being launched by the EFF here at Giant Stadium in Soshanguve. Like I was saying earlier on, I'm with my colleague Patricia Fisake. She's on the ground engaging EFF supporters who continue to trickle in this stadium before the main address by the EFF leader, Julius Malema. Patricia Fisake?
Well, thank you so much, Abongile. As you can see, I'm here in the main tent. This is where the EFF supporters, members, the veterans, the elders of the party are seated, made comfortable, of course, in this beautiful tent, the shade. And it is the elders who have been part of the country's structures throughout the years since the dawn of democracy, 25 years. So we want to find out from them, how do they feel? What are their expectations? And exactly what would they want to hear in, of course, the EFF leader Julius Malema's election manifesto address that we will be hearing later in the program. But let's speak to Ndate here to find out what he is expecting. Papa, what are you expecting?
Now, we as black people, we want our land back because we have suffered for so many years because apartheid system. We want Malema to get some jobs here for the old people and the youth. We have suffered for so many years. Relapile ka apartheid, batho ba ntshitswe mo dintlong, re nyaka Malema a ba busetse dintlong tsa bona gape. GG and EFF. That's why I'm here today.
Now, the EFF is a young party. It started in 2013. Before the EFF, where were you and why did you decide to make that change of mind and actually join this party?
Always I'm looking for in TV. Zondo Commission, there is he told us about all this corruption which our own government have made it. Zondo Commission in dilo tse dintsi tse re kgonang go di bona mo gore mo ANC go na le bothata bo bogolo. Then we are tired of this ANC. That's why today I'm here.
All right, thank you so much. Party elders here at the EFF Manifesto launch, of course, where a whole lot of issues will be tabled, highlighted by the party leader later in the program. We continue to engage with the party elders to find out what are their needs. And that just introduce yourself. Where do you come from and what are your needs?
Nakena Isaac Manamela Mutsoko. It's extension 1 plot 67 dilo tsa rena tse re dinyakang tse le reng aba di rile tsona gona ba no re na le 29 years re nna plekeng plot 67 ha rena re flash re na le di pit toilet and then so mokhansala rena in Japan baloi Hari releselo, akopane le rena, Huanka, Susangube, plot 67, extension 1. Harne mutuare emelang. Hobane remuketi le efela ena, hari emeli. Sai, heri mita hake. O bolela hore, ena, I go back to Mbailoring, habana responsibility. Efela rena honanu, we are sick and tired, come councillor arena. Hobane na uchachelete ya sitaba fela wa hola sai ko ya ditabeneng le basadi fela rena ri rele selo re le matheku fela bjani ha re ne ntwe re kriang he re tshwanetse re kre di niti tsa rena re ya go ena re mmotsa re a sokola. Okay,
Papa, but today you came to listen to the election manifesto by your leader, Julius Malema. What are your expectations? What are you hoping he would highlight in his address today?
Re phela bophelo bo bo tshwanetseng re phela bophelo ba maqheku gobane rena ona re maqheku ha o ne se re ka se irang re nyaka mebereko ba le tsofetse ha le ka re mebereko e fela re patela rente ene o ka re malema a ka re irela dikontiri a ira re bane le bana ba rena ba bane le dipaka bana ba rena ba phele monate le sekolo ba kgone ho tsena sekolo mahala le bophelo ba rena e be bophelo bo monate.
All right, thank you, Papa, thank you. There you hear it from some of the EFF elders, the party veterans, just echoing their frustrations, their unhappiness with how events have been handled on the various government structures over the past 25 years of democracy, saying that they are hungry for change. They came here hoping to hear a message of confidence, a message that can change the lives of the grassroots majority. Some of them talking about how things have not even really shown any glimpse of change. No water, they're still using pit toilets. Of course, highlighting one of those sensitive issues in the country, and that is the lack of jobs. You can see the party elders here having a great time, getting down, building up the mood ahead of the party leader address where Julius Malema will be outlining the party's election manifesto later in the program. Now we expect him to start talking between 12 and 1 this afternoon, where he will be addressing the crowd here. You can see it is the party veterans, it is the elders of the EFF, and they're really turning up. They're getting the vibe on and really having an electric mood as they await the big moment. All roads lead to the giant stadium here in Soshanguve ahead of the EFF election manifesto. Let's give it back to my colleague Abongile while I get down with some of the party elders here on the ground.
Remember the road that will lead you home.
No autocue.
Remember the road that will lead you home. That will lead you home.
Oh, Patricia Fisachi and Abongile Dumago there holding fort. Good morning. Thanks for watching. This is the agenda, the Saturday edition. We're coming to you from our Johannesburg studios, but most of our broadcast today will be on the field. The Economic Freedom Fighters, the EFF, as you've seen for the entire morning, are at the Giant Stadium in Soshanguve launching their manifesto, which is a list of promises to the voters. And the African National Congress is in Khalishiwe in the Northern Cape. So is their president. They are doing the provincial unpacking of their manifesto that they've already launched. Do you think these interactions will help you make the decision about which party to vote for come election day? I'm with John Lulu here in the studio. He's the former editor at the Sowetan. He's a strategist and a columnist, and he'll be helping us from the side of things to unpack